Listen, do you want to do evangelism, but you're afraid of getting into like a disagreement, like a fight, like a knockdown, drag-out yelling match? Honestly, me too. I don't want to do that. I don't think anyone does. It's not productive. And that's not what evangelism is. You know, we often hear doctrinal preaching from pulpits, and we think that's how we ought to do evangelism. Well, what we do is we just preach at them. But then we get caught flat-footed when we get called out as being maybe too aggressive, or we find ourselves in a lot more of an argument than a discussion about Scripture. This isn't the way. We need to treat others the way that we want to be treated. And that's critical for successful evangelism. Otherwise, we're going to invalidate our entire message. So, hey there, Christian, I'm Kane Atkinson, and I'm a seed sower for the Kettering Church of Christ. And I'm here bringing you yet another Tuesday eTip. That's an evangelism tip for your benefit so that you can feel more comfortable and more at ease trying to show Christ to the people that you love and be a living, breathing testimony to the awesome redemptive power that is found in only the Christ. And this Tuesday, I want to remind you of the critical driving force behind every evangelistic effort, and that's called empathy and care for their soul. Now, I know Ephesians 6, it does describe a fight, a wrestling, a warfare, a battle over souls, a grand conflict, one that can even seem daunting at times. When we place our faith in God, though, we do agree to step over onto His side of this war. We're trying to win people to Christ. But it's not exactly what it sounds like on the surface when we say war. It's not like a physical fight, and our true enemy can't be seen. So when we're doing our evangelistic work, we have to remind ourselves that the person sitting across the table from us, they aren't necessarily our enemy. They're a lost sheep, a prodigal child of God, just as we once were. And we need to have empathy here. And as the letter to the Colossians says, we need to season our speech with grace. Different people are in different places. And many of our friends have never heard the complete gospel or the finer points of doctrine that we read about in the Bible. So we need to be very careful with them because there are souls at stake. So rather than tell you exactly how to say everything and give you a bucketed list of phrases to say like a robot, I want to remind you of just two principles to inject into all of your evangelistic efforts. Number one, everybody wants to feel loved, but yet still, number two, everybody needs Christ. So if you remember these two things, that's going to balance your efforts in sharing the gospel. Our intention in sharing the gospel with someone or helping them to understand maybe a biblical doctrine is never ever to win an argument. It's to win their soul. And this can't be done without some degree of care and concern, and it likely won't happen from one short conversation. In 2 Timothy 2 and verse 16, Paul just flat out says it. Avoid irreverent babble because it leads people into more and more ungodliness. Point being, just arguing for the sake of trying to win an argument is going to utterly miss the point of what ministry is. But when we work with someone and come to them with a spirit that is willing and ready to join hands with them and walk with them to the foot of the cross together, well, that allows them to see Christ. So if they see, on the contrary, hypocrisy, that we try to force them or bully them to the cross, something Jesus would never do, then we won't be nearly as effective. Additionally, this attitude of trying to come alongside versus pushing against is going to take so much of the pressure off of you. You won't have to work yourself up. You can trust God. Open the Word with someone and talk freely, knowing it and being willing to admit that we may need to study more. We need to be able to admit that we could be wrong. Model a good example of a humble disciple, and you'll be surprised the conversations that you can have. So use your empathy, and don't take for granted that you just know the truth on everything. Think, if the roles were reversed, and I was the one outside of Christ, I was the one sitting across the table, what kind of attitude would I expect from someone who claims to follow Jesus? If we were to disagree about something as heavy and as serious as religion or spiritual things, how would I then want for them to treat me? If I were lost or confused or in error on some issue, how would I want to be corrected? You would want to be corrected, but in a certain way. So apply these and watch how it changes your interactions. Bottom line, empathy makes evangelism much more effective.